to Mr. Preston. Mr. Preston, after 7 years, a federal lawsuit, and multiple congressional hearings, the SBA puts out a rule that designates 4 industry as underrepresented. If this proposed rule is finalized, less than 1,300 out of 10 million women-owned businesses will potentially benefit from the Women's Procurement Program. It also requires agencies to make a discriminatory finding regarding its past procurement practices, a heavy and unrealistic burden for any cabinet secretary. Once this is implemented, do you believe that it will increase contracts so dramatically that the 5% goal will be achieved?
Yeah, first of all, I want to highlight a couple of the numbers you just mentioned. Roughly 1,200 businesses versus many millions. The 1,200 is not all businesses in these categories. It's all businesses that are registered to do business with the federal government. So that 1,200, relates to about 55,000. Granted, still about 2%. We believe it'll be an additional tool in their quiver, but we certainly don't think that this is going to be the end-all at helping agencies meet their federal goals. And as I mentioned in my testimony, we think that federal agencies are going to continue to have to focus on outreach efforts, recruiting more women into the CCR, and doing the job and really finding the right business for those contracts.
Do you believe that the 5% will be achieved?
I believe that a 5% will be achieved someday. And I think that if you look at the growth over the last several years, it's been very, very strong. So I think we're on the path.
Do you believe it will be achieved this year?
I don't believe it will be achieved this year.
Mr. Preston, we have gone back and examined the numbers, and in order to achieve the 5% goal, and I know that you mentioned your numbers, but we went back, and based on the data, we found that 1,247 businesses designated as underrepresented will have to receive a contract worth of $4.4 million. This is 10 times the average a small business contract get. How likely, on a scale on 1 to 100, with 1 being absolutely no way, to 100 being absolutely guaranteed, that each and every of these 1,247 women-owned businesses will receive a contract worth of 4.4%?
You're presuming that federal agencies are going to look at 4 out of 313 categories to increase their contracts with women. And you're presuming that the only way to do that is to go to those categories. It's a much, much broader opportunity, and I think for agencies to hit those goals, they have to look well beyond those 4 categories to be effective.
The number that I'm mentioning to you will have to correspond to the 4 categories.
And
those 4 industries.
The increase,
but let me. I don't agree with you. And you know that.
The $1.5 billion increase we saw in 2006 had nothing to do with set-aside programs. It had everything to do with agencies doing more business with women-owned businesses that were competing effectively. And these firms are competing effectively. And so I think this is an additional tool, but I don't think this is what we can look to expand our...
Well, Mr. Preston, the focus of today's hearing is the Women Procurement Program. One of the 4 industries that the SBA designated as underrepresented was national security and international affairs. Is that correct?
That's correct.
However, the size standard specifies that such contracts cannot be performed by private businesses. Do you know that?
My understanding is that there were private firms in that category, but there were most of the contracts were classified, so it was difficult for us to get detailed information.
The size standards, Mr. Preston, specifies that such contracts cannot be performed by private businesses. What this means is that it will prevent women-owned businesses and any small business, for that matter, from getting a national security contract. So I'm appalled. And please explain to me then why the SBA include such an industry in its proposed rule.
This was one of the 4 industries that was recommended by the RAND Corporation study. and that's why we included it.
Section 92. Small business size standards are not established for this sector. Establishment in the public administration sector are federal, state, and local government agency which administer and oversee government programs and activities that are not performed by private establishments. So what it means is that this industry is out. So we have now 3 industries where women will be able to participate. So the Small Business Administration had 7 years to get this right, and you come back with this product. It's just amazing, Mr. Preston. Your regulation requires an agency to make a discriminatory finding in order to use the program. Has this ever been done before for a congressionally created affirmative action program?
I don't have the history on that. My understanding is there's significant precedent in looking at contracting, preferential contracting programs
Ms.
that would
Papez,
require that.
Can you tell us if an agency finding of discrimination has ever been required before for a similar situated program?
Oh, absolutely.
And I need a yes or not answer.
Yes, absolutely. Multiple federal courts of appeals and multiple federal district courts applying intermediate scrutiny have required exactly that. They've required.
Can you provide the committee examples of such
Of course, absolutely. One of the examples that I mentioned in my opening testimony was an 11th Circuit case. By the way, all the cases I referred to.
But, Ms. Papez, I'm asking programs, not court cases.
Yes.
Programs.
Yes, programs. The court cases address programs, programs to give women-owned businesses contracting preferences. Those are the court cases I was relying on. They all deal with the kind of programs we're talking about here.
For each agency, you will require?
Well, for the government, yes. I mean,
I want for you to mention to us for each agency.
Absolutely. One of the examples that I mentioned in my opening testimony was an 11th Circuit case. By the way, all the cases I referred to.
But Ms. Papez,